Lagu ni dapat dari mana?
DJ lama kumpul. Kau dengar lagu tu zaman-zaman bila tu boleh agak lah kan.
Bila masuk lobby, kenalah dengar lagu yang macam ni sikit.
Can I start now?
Buka video.
Yeah, I think good.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day to all participants of MSC12. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our roundtable session. My name is Fadila and I will be your MC for this session. Without further ado, I'm excited to introduce the roundtable session for today entitled Localizing Sustainable Development Goals SDG, the Malaysian Experience. Please be informed, this session is separated into 3 parts with different moderators and panels. The moderator of part 1 is Datuk Dr. Denison Jayasuriya, entitled Multi-Stakeholder Engagement. Please welcome our first moderator, Datuk Dr. Denison Jayasuriya, who will introduce and lead this session. The screen is yours, Datuk Denison.
Okay, selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera. Welcome to all to this session on localizing SDGs. And in this first segment for half an hour, I hope I'm able to keep the time. If not, the Secretariat can help facilitate that. In terms of multi-stakeholder engagement in this process, and especially in looking at how we have a smart partnership working at the level of parliamentarians, the government, civil society, including private sector in this context. But our panel is made up of 3 distinguished speakers today, parliamentarian, government spokesperson, and civil society. Now, the SDGs, especially SDG 17, brings this theme of multi-stakeholder engagement. Many of us have been in the course of our work, in involvement with different levels of engagement. But this arrangement is a unique one, which is endorsed by Parliament in October 2019, comprising of parliamentarians in the all-party parliamentary group on sustainable development goals. And we are the first to be constituted in Malaysia, following the UK example. And in that process, to take on SDG in localizing, in working with policymakers, and so forth. So I won't take much more time on this, the pilot project of 2020 with 10 parliamentary constituencies, and in 2021 to 20, and we are being strongly supported by the Economic Planning Unit, by Parliament, and the money has been allocated by government through Ministry of Finance, depending whichever government, because we are bipartisan in that. And I have great pleasure in welcoming the first panelist, who is also the chair of the APPG, SDG, and MP of Batang Lupa, YB Datuk Sri Rohaini Abdul Karim. To start the session, YB, unfortunately, kita ada 5 minit saja. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Professor Datuk Dr. Denison Jayasuriya, distinguished members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to share with you my experience and views on the importance of multi-stakeholder engagement in the achievement of the SDGs. The APPGM SDG is a good model to display this, so I would like to share with you. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals recognizes the need for inclusive participation and effective stakeholder engagement to ensure the successful implementation of the SDGs. The integrated approach illustrated by the 5 Ps, people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership, requires new ways of cooperating. Effective stakeholder engagement and partnerships are a means to that end. Effective stakeholder engagement allows people to be involved in the decision that affect them and has positive outcomes for governance, transparency, and accountability. Where stakeholders are engaged in decision-making, decisions are more likely to be sustainable from economic, social, and environmental perspectives. Now, one of the principles being upheld by APPGM SDG, which is in line with the SDGs with specific reference to SDG 17, which says, encourages and promotes the effective public-private civil society partnership, building on the experience and resourcing strategies of partnership, is being reflected in our work throughout our work, with an emphasis on multi-stakeholder engagement. The bottoms-up approach that is being used by APPGM SDG in undertaking the localization of SDG is to ensure that all levels of sectors are being involved in the process. It adopts a multi-stakeholder and participative approach with issues, challenges, and potential solutions being identified through the engagement with the MPs, local NGOs and leaders, government agencies at the ground level. The implementation of the solution project by the local civil societies, universities, and social enterprises is a value-added approach towards strengthening the multi-stakeholder model. While multi-stakeholder engagement and partnerships are important for expediting SDGs implementation, the drivers are the policy framework that regulate and enable long-term changes. The APPGM SDG documentation of the policy issues arising from the grounded findings and bring up to our parliamentary group for national level discussion, as well as with the relevant federal agencies, especially the Economic Planning Unit for their review and action, has ensured a much more robust inclusion in the policy and practices based on SDGs framework, and as well as greater accountability towards its achievement. Now I want to share lesson learned. Coming to the end of the first cycle of SDG implementation, Malaysia's SDG performance improved based on the achievement of the goals set as reported by the EPU, who is responsible for the SDGs roadmap in Malaysia. It is very heartwarming to see a strong commitment shown by our government in this sense. This is, however, not achievable without the support of everyone. The partnership between the government and the various key players, such as the private sectors, NGOs, CSOs, and other local stakeholders.
YB, your mic. The mic accidentally tutup already. Bukan sabotage.
Okay. The partnership between the government and the various key players, such as the private sectors, NGOs, CSOs, and other local stakeholders, have definitely given strong impact towards the performance of SDGs in our country. Various initiatives that have been taken by the government in engaging with the civil societies prove that such multi-stakeholder engagement is very well celebrated, and the government seeks everyone to work hand in hand as we go on. The SDG implementation requires commitment from all quarters to continue for the people's development agenda. Multi-stakeholder engagement are indeed needed to implement the SDGs at all levels, as no stakeholder alone can uphold or execute this ambitious agenda. This implies that the involvement of local, state, and national government, public and private sectors, civil society actors, the academia, and think tank. The general public also need to get engaged so that citizens can play an educated, constructive role and be part of the drivers of the social transformation. It is with strong emphasis that I would like to say the goals are not achievable without the support and involvement of everyone. APPGM SDG may have been a very excellent vehicle in this process, but there is so much to be done which requires a more vigorous and steadfast commitment of all. I'm optimistic that with the spirit that we have today, we are moving faster than we could have imagined towards achieving the agenda, and may we all pray for the stability of the government in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
thank you.
Ruby. I
Thank
think you embody the spirit of bipartisanship in working together. And I think that is a very important dimension and aspect of how we operate in the APPG and in the SDGs as a whole. Thank you very much. Let me move on. I know time is passing by. The civil society and the parliamentary group has been working very closely with the economic planning unit. And the economic planning unit is the lead agency for SDGs, and they have played that role effectively since 2015 in the working up and global agreements, and subsequently in the SDG steering committee and incorporating civil society. And in the last VNR, we have had a very good experience with EPU. And I'm honored to welcome Che Kode, who is in the environmental section of EPU, a senior official of EPU, who has agreed to join us and to share government perspective on this principle of multi-stakeholder engagement. Over to you.
Terima kasih Yang Berbahagia Datuk. Terima kasih Yang Berbahagia Datuk, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Rohani Abdul Karim, Chair of APPGM SDG and MP for Batang Lupar. Datuk Dr. Danesan Jayasurya, Head of APPGM SDG Secretariat. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting Economic Planning Unit as part of the panel to discuss SDG localization and the importance of multi-stakeholder engagement. As you may be aware, Malaysia has presented our second voluntary national review to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development on the 15th of July this year. While the first VNR in the 2017 focuses heavily on the government's effort in achieving SDGs, our second VNR this year took a different approach by adopting a whole-of-nation approach. We conducted comprehensive multi-stakeholder engagements. There has been a lot of collaboration between the state and non-state actors. CSO were also invited as members to the technical and steering VNR committees and reviewed the draft of VNR. The Malaysian government encouraged an open and transparent process for CSO and other stakeholders' input during the consultation process. This helped us gain better perspective on the nation's performance, as well as identifying gaps and challenges in implementing SDGs. We also received input from various stakeholders for the write-up, and many contributed box articles for the VNR 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has made it more urgent to localize the SDGs and demonstrated the critical role of local governments and local authorities in accelerating the progress of SDGs. Local authorities are monitoring their SDGs progress through the voluntary local review. Shah Alam, for instance, has presented their VLR this year, and other cities have initiated the VLR process currently. comprising of Kuala Lumpur, Subang Jaya, Putrajaya, Alor Gajah, and Melaka City, and more cities will follow later on. The whole of nation approach is essential in attaining Agenda 2030. A comprehensive multi-stakeholder engagement helps us gain better perspective on the nation's performance, as well as identifying gaps and challenges in implementing SDGs. It allows for meaningful participation of all stakeholders and enables easier mobilization of resources needed to implement the SDGs. We believe that forging strong partnership is important to ensure buy-in from all relevant parties to the Sustainable Development Agenda. As a way forward, we believe that we should intensify SDG localization projects to ensure no one is left behind. Increasing the awareness on SDGs through communication, education, and public awareness on SDG are critical to accelerate the SDGs. Proper communication strategy plan must be devised to ensure our messages are consistent across all communication channels and are being received appropriately by different target audience. Promotional activities and continuous communication can help build positive image among community relation and forge connection with stakeholders. With that, I conclude my speech and hand over to you, Dato'. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Terima kasih pandangan dari EPU dan sokongan yang diberi oleh EPU. And also we hope between now and the next VNR, the partnership will become stronger at least the technical and professional levels. Thank you very much. Can I now invite Mr. Anthony Tan, representing the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance. Anthony has had a very long period of working in civil society, especially with environmental organizations for quite a long while, and currently he serves as the finance executive at the APPG SDG Secretariat, and he would share perspectives from civil society, academics, and solution providers. Unfortunately, only 5 minutes lah. Okay, big agenda.
I will speak as fast as possible. Thank you, moderator, Professor Dato' Dr. Denison Jayasuriya, esteemed fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I thank PSSM for inviting me to share the experience that I have gathered through the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia on Sustainable Development Goals, or the acronym is APPGM-SDG, which is a bipartisan grouping formed by Parliament. The APPGM-SDG Secretariat team comprises of members from the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance, an umbrella body representing almost 50 organizations, which have diverse interests from human rights to health, education to environment, women and youth, and many more. In 2020, phase 1 of the pilot project was launched, whereby the Secretariat engaged 10 elected members of parliament and 2 senators. The 10 parliamentary constituencies were included on a voluntary basis. We are currently in phase 2 of the pilot phase and in the process of engaging a further 20 parliamentarians. For 2020, 54 projects were initiated to localize SDGs at the 10 pilot constituencies. Of these, 22 capacity building activities covering awareness on SDGs for government servants and the public, and engagement between community and government agencies. There were 32 projects covering issues including health, environment, ecotourism, educational skills development, digital entrepreneur development, income generation, women and community empowerment. The APPGM SDG Secretariat team formed multi-stakeholder collaborations with, first of all, parliamentarians, members of parliament were roped in as local champions of SDGs to bring elements of SDGs closer to the hearts and minds of constituents, and also to interact with government agencies at local level. We had researchers from local, public, and private universities. These researchers participated on the ground research at each parliamentary constituency and interacted with the members of parliament, communities, and relevant government agencies. Researchers from parliament and think tanks were also invited to have a hands-on participation to experience the research methodology employed and to have a better understanding of the issues on the ground. The community was engaged and time was spent before, during, and after the site visits to get the buy-in of the local community. This is in line with the bottom-up approach of sustainable development. Fifth, the social entrepreneurs. We discovered a number of not-for-profit enterprises that were able to address local issues. Quite a few of these were members of the local communities themselves. Civil society organizations, we encountered many CSOs, mainly based in situ, already working on the ground. These include indigenous peoples groups, women, youth, farmer, fishermen, and university undergraduates. Now, unfortunately, however, quite often these groups worked in isolation from each other. We also had business groups in some localities where it was possible to incorporate support from local business owners in the solutions. And finally, government agencies. As we all know or might know, Malaysia has a three-tier form of government, which is federal, state, and local government. And these have overlapping authority. The phrase breaking the silo mentality is often used in Malaysia to describe working with different government agencies across these three jurisdictions. There's a sense of you keep on your turf and I will keep to my turf. A specific partnership that would bear the most progress is a partnership between government agencies, private sector, academia or research, civil society groups. When these four groups intersect, it will give up to the rise of local social enterprises. And this five-party relationship is also known as the pentahelix. As I conclude, I wish to record our thanks for the support given to the Malaysian CSO Alliance by the Malaysian government, particularly from the Economic Planning Unit of the Prime Minister's Department. Finally, I thank PSSM once again for this opportunity to share our experience with this forum.
Thank you, Encik Anthony Tan. I think I still have a few more minutes, right? Dari urus dia, sebab sampai 12:15 I see the program for this first panel. I just thought it might be helpful to get our YB's comment on also Cik Kode's comment and Anthony about the mechanisms that have been created for engagement. Cik Kode just now highlighted the National SDG Steering Committee, in which civil society agencies have been invited for the VNR preparation. This is at the high level. We all participated with EPU and all. But the VNR also in the projection for the future highlights the setting up of district level task force on SDG for multi-stakeholder, because peringkat akar umbi, there isn't a mechanism with the DO's office, with local authority, and so forth. So I just thought, how important is this? I think in the challenges and way forward, the VNR report highlighted that. So I just wanted to get some feedback from our three panelists. Can I start with YB first? Your role last time as cabinet minister, now state advisor, now MP, now chair of APPJ, apa pandangan terhadap dua peringkat, atasan dan bawah?
Okay, thank you. I think soalan yang begitu menarik dan actually that will ensure greater success for the kind of process we're going through besides being bipartisan. Now, in a personal capacity, saya mendapat banyak kerjasama yang baik, maybe in my capacity, because I used to be, you know, the experience I have, jadi kawan pun ramai. I've been in, I was, in fact, I started even as Setiausaha Parlimen. Sekarang ini dah tak ada lagi dah jawatan Setiausaha Parlimen, until even the minister and now back as an ordinary MP. And I also have an experience of being pembangkang now in the government. Jadi the experience that I have helped for me to get all the kerjasama that I can. And being wakil rakyat, I think the other MPs will agree with me. Kita pun, you know, being wakil rakyat, we get the masses, you know, the ground support bila masa kita membuat engagement. And then pegawai-pegawai on the ground macam pegawai daerah dan sebagainya, they are willing to come by. But one thing I find out, so Cik Kode is here and I think the others are here. This is, I'm having soalan parlimen, you know, I dah masuk soalan parlimen. Kerjasama is very good, tetapi kalau it is standardized, okay, not necessary or because saya yang buat engagement saya dapat kerjasama, atau YB William buat engagement dapat kerjasama. But what about sometimes there are others having problem? I remember that time masa YB Dr. Kevin for Bandar Kuching, bila dia nak memanggil pegawai to come along in his engagement, it became a problem. So they have to find out from me, is it okay? I kata, okay, this is APPGM, we don't talk about politics. We are on the ground to help people. Tapi kalau benda ni dapat you know, to be how to say, SOP is an SOP, meaning to say kalau SDG matters, semua pegawai-pegawai on the ground, be it at local authority, be it at state, be it at federal, are willing to come together. Yes, that is harapan saya. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cik Kode, we have a few more minutes only. Your view, EPU is very important in this process, giving federal leadership, but now at the local level, bagaimana the BNR way forward? Your mic.
Okay, terima kasih Datuk, dan juga terima kasih kepada Yang Berhormat Datuk Rohani for your views. First of all, I think we would like to thanks to APPGM for your contribution to spearhead and to advocate SDG sehingga ke peringkat akar umbi lah. This is quite important. This also help PPU in implementing our role and responsibility to make sure all of our citizens are aware about the SDG. At the federal level, actually, we have a Majlis SDG Kebangsaan chaired by Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri. It consists of all ministers, federal ministers, and federal agencies. But to spearhead the SDG, we also plan to have in the upcoming Malaysian plan to activate the SDG at the state and local level as well. We will conduct the program with support from CSO and NGO as well as PPGM SDG. So I do agree. So we need to do more program and activities at the local level, especially. But as of now, we have made to understand that some of the PBTs already conducted their VLR voluntarily. So we thanks for that. I think we need to encourage more and more PBTs to do that. Yes, the information need to be facilitated or to be disseminated to the ground level in a systematic and comprehensive manner for them to really understand then we need to work as a team, Dato', dan Yang Berhormat, to make sure that this target is implemented properly lah. So I think that's all for time being.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Anthony. Just 1 minute. Can you?
Yeah.
1 minute. Your pandangan.
Okay.
CSO.
The CSOs need to have a good cooperation with government. From our experience working with the MPs, we know that MPs put aside the politics. All MPs want to work for the rakyat. It's just that in the Dewan Rakyat is different, outside the Dewan Rakyat is different. But our experience working with EPU has been a very, very good experience. We know that EPU is supportive, but having said that, I think the district is where we really need to work on, because that's where the people actually are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this first panel. I see Professor Rashila looking at me a number of times. Thank you very much, YB, for all your views, your support and role. Cik Kode as well, and Anthony. We note that multi-stakeholder engagement. In this case, we highlighted only 3 key components. Researchers, academics, private sector is equally important. Yes.
Can I say something very important?
Sure. Okay.
I think especially kepada Cik Kode EPU, I think we got a lot of help also from your minister, your your past minister. Jadi it makes a lot of difference bila menteri tu memahami and in line. Especially kita also buat solution project in Jeli, so he really understood, so it helped a lot. So harapan kita semoga whoever the coming or the same person, then it's easy, because we really need that help, dan kerja pun mudah, amat mudah. In fact, this is what Yang Berhormat Mustafa kata, Rohani, dia kata you all dapat nama. No, I said we work together, bukan APPGM saja. We work together as a team, a very good team. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I think my time is up, and thank you, Cik Kode, YB, Anthony, for your input, and let's be in the ongoing discussion on mapping needs and issues as well as the solution project. Over to you, Prof. Rashila, who's moderating the next component.
Thank you, Dr. Denison Jayasuriya and members. Next, please join me in welcoming Professor Dr. Rashira Lamli, who will be moderating the second part of the roundtable session entitled Mapping Needs and Issues. The screen is yours, Prof. Rashila.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Fadila. And thank you, Prof. Denison, YB Rohani, Cik Qadir, and friends. In the second segment, the focus will be on mapping needs and issues. So while in the first segment we talked about multi-stakeholders, now we're bringing it down to the APPGM program at the constituency levels, and we do need to do different kind of we do need to take different kind of steps in order to be able to identify projects and programs and so on. So with in this panel, in this section, we have 3 speakers with us. Unfortunately, YB Maria Chin is not able to be with us. She's the deputy chair, and she sends her greetings. Our 3 panelists are Encik Alizan Mahadi, Associate Professor Dr. Zainal Abidin Sanusi, and then we also Dr. Zaim, Dr. Zaim Muarifuddin Shukri from UNIMAS. So what we like to do in this section, similar to the other, we will have only half an hour to until 12:45. I would call each of the speakers to share out their thoughts for about 5 minutes or so, on 3 different. These are some questions we worked out for the 3 speakers. So we'll start with Encik Alizan. Encik Alizan is the head of research division for APPGM. He is also the senior researcher, director of research for the Institute of Strategy and International Studies Malaysia, ISIS. So Encik Alizan, you've been with APPGM since the beginning, and a lot of work have been done, wonderful work. So maybe to share this more at the public level, yeah. We do have about 100 people, close to 100 here, and then also we are also on the YouTube right now. Maybe can you describe the method of issue identification or issue mapping? What is the major conceptual consideration? Are the points that you may share in the next 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes? Yeah, Alizan, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Dato', and a very good afternoon to everyone. And firstly, thank you for inviting me here. I will share a bit in terms of how we do the issue mapping in terms of our methods, but also the importance of that issue mapping, because previously some of you here may have also joined the institutional panel, which I shared a bit more in depth in terms of the methodology. I'd like to begin by saying, first of all, the starting point is the Sustainable Development Goals. When we talk about Sustainable Development Goals, because it being a goal, many people see that as an end, as a target itself. But actually, SDGs is a tool. It's a problem-solving tool that can be used by researchers, that can be used by civil society, by government to address specific goals. So here at the APPGM SDG, we use the SDG as a tool for localizing and implementing it at the parliamentary constituency level. Now, as I highlighted for those who attended the institutional panel, in terms of the methods, essentially, the challenge of adopting a global framework at the local level is to ensure we have a diversity of views, is to ensure we have a diversity of issue areas, is to also understand the diversity of the different local contexts as well. So in this sense, it's, in terms of the method, it's very bottom up. And what I mean by that, it is quite unstructured, semi-structured to unstructured, where we really ask the local community themselves, what are the most pressing issues from your point of view? So here, it is not really force-feeding the SDGs to the local community, but really facilitating a process to understand from the views of the local communities, local NGOs, the member of parliaments, as well as the local government agencies, what are the most pressing issues, and the researchers then take the responsibility to map those issues to the SDGs. I'm going to move a bit more in terms of, quite broadly, the importance of this mapping exercise. And firstly, what we found is the first issue is really the structure. In Malaysia, I think we all know Malaysia is quite a centralized country in terms of its governance, in terms of its planning, and even in terms of its delivery. And this has served Malaysia well. It's not to just criticize this centralized planning, but what we found is when we go to ground, it's very important to also map the issues from the bottom-up perspective. And here we see various communities being left out in this approach to development. We see various silos being operated in delivery and so on. So in terms of this structure, it's very important, especially for researchers, for social science to play that role in this kind of, not countering, but in addressing this issue, the structural issue in the context of Malaysia. Secondly, is there are data and knowledge gaps, especially official data, once again, which is often at the aggregated level. Granted, especially Department of Statistics have been moving towards the district level, but there are still various data and knowledge gaps that can be filled by the researchers themselves. And once again, this mapping exercise at the local level captures these data. Furthermore, there are communities that are not captured within the formal data processes. For example, we have communities who are working in informal economies that may not be captured in data on formal economies. We have communities who are living in squatter areas, and we have found this quite a lot within APPG. And again, these communities are not captured within the formal structures, as well as we have communities such as migrant communities and so on, who are often not being captured in official data. So through the mapping process, we managed to capture this data. And finally, in terms of capacity building, my last point, Prof. Dato, is where through adopting essentially a participatory action research framework in mapping the SDGs, we see the role and the important role of researchers in building the capacity of the local population. Here we see the researchers not only generating knowledge, but handholding the local communities towards uplifting their livelihoods and so on. And this is the significance of this approach of APPGM SDG. It is not only it is also knowledge generating, but also in filling the gap for policy as well as building social and community capacities. I'll stop there, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alizan, for sharing your thoughts. Yeah, it is very important to lay out the framework which is using SDG, but in this case SDG as a tool for the community, and for us, for APPGM, it is about localizing SDG to the ground level. And we are very lucky indeed to have, at least for last year, 10 constituencies to work with. And this year, another 22 constituencies that we are working with. It is a lot of hard work, but it is important that we do link up with the local community. So at this point, we do have our second speaker, Dr. Zainal, Associate Professor Dr. Zainal, who is with the Sejahtera Center of the International Islamic University. So Dr. Zainal, welcome to the second segment here of our roundtable.
Thank you.
And Dr. Zainal, maybe you can also share with us at this point, within the mapping and within issue mapping, the process itself, who are the stakeholders that APPGM engage with to increase the success of the mapping exercise? Because we're linking really at the grassroots level, yeah. And also, what might be the biggest challenge actually? Because you have gone to the ground probably more than all of us, besides Dato' Denison, I think. Okay. All right.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. If you don't mind for me to share, there's something on the screen, so that I could get something to put on. Okay, all right. That's the picture of the stakeholders that we engage in. I would categorize it into 5 instead of usual 3 or 4. So these are the main one would be the community members, of course, and the NGOs and the policy makers or the local authorities, and we ourselves, the academics, comes in, and then not that much successful yet, but we, as much as possible, we try to get business entities in as well. So when we do this engagement, what make a difference when we do this mapping is that how much are we able to really bring all the 5s together, or maybe, I mean, most of the case not successfully, but at least at one particular visit that we do, we try to engage in these 5. You can see together on the screen, these are the pictures, and it's interesting the pictures illustrate that when we engage with the stakeholders, I mean the policymakers, the authorities, the local authorities, farmers, etc. We purposely design in a way that we bring them to the actual place of agriculture, like the picture on the right, that you get to see the farmer. So because that set a kind of like good mood for the mapping. It's the real context of the discussions, because this is what been missing. We usually, our research and etc. is happening through the literature or very formal setup of interview. So by getting these people on the ground, really their playing ground, that would make difference. Secondly, the community members. What is important when we bring in when we engage with these community members, it has to be a very natural context of their living, their situations. What we mean here is that one of the occasion, I guess, I'm not sure whether this is in Jeli or somewhere, is in the Kedai Kopi. Why is it important? Why this kind of natural setup important is because that's where you get the real input. Because if you bring them into the hotel, it might be different setup, it might be different input. And then also it's interesting for us to also to reach as well, to do usually unreachable one, or the marginalized one. What I mean here is that when we were in Papar, these are the stateless one. We went to the center with MKN, of course, with their permissions, but this will make the to dramatize the thing, but this is just to show that this is the kind of condition they are living in. And if we, as a research, go down, engage them in these conditions, it brings a different kind of input. It brings a different kind of momentum, and that will make a difference. And the other one is, of course, the NGOs, because we thought that we come there only for 3 days. So definitely we are not able to capture the whole information or to have a comprehensive perspective on it. But what we do is that collecting them, putting them, gathering them in one 15, 20 NGOs together. So combining all these 5, these are the group of the Rashida, these are all the 5 stakeholders that we engage in. And in doing this, the challenge that we found, very interesting. This is where we really get to put off our hat as academicians conventionally, where we just do the teaching in the classroom, etc. But when we go down to the local, to the kampung, village, and etc., most important was that how we portray ourselves. I see this as a very important challenge. Once you manage to nicely break the ice, you'll get the info. If you fail to do this, they'll keep on silent. They will not be revealing to you, either because you might be politician and etc. I mean, seen as a political parties and etc. And then the second one is to establish the trust. How do we establish the trust? Because the challenge here is that when we come with the name of parliament, some of them, I think this is quite common story among us, that they thought that we bring in either green, blue, or whatever flag. But we declare from the very beginning, we are bringing the white flag. And so this is how it's set up, a very interesting, a very common, a very neutral, very safe environment for the stakeholders to share with us. Thirdly is the communications. Sometimes I've seen myself, the new lecturers, sometimes they come down to the ground joining us with a very academic language that sometimes they cannot get the message through, that the stakeholders are not comfortable. And the last point is when it talks about community members, the issues, how do we break up the issues? It has to be very highly contextualized. How do we do that? We start with the issues that are very closest to them, because sometimes we talk about their children, etc. So this is a kind of skill, I guess, you won't get in the classroom, you won't get even from your PhD. From my PhD, but when you go to the ground, this is a real thing. The last one that I would like to share is that in engaging the local authorities, I think this is the most challenging part, whereby not only it's not easy to get them to really see that we are adding benefit to their discussions or their discourse in their district, but how do we manage to speak their language? And in our case, in our experience, is that how do we do this? Is how we bring in the experience or information from the people, from the ground, and then share with them. So they will then have an impression of, like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. So I guess that's the 5 minutes that I have, just to illustrate who do we engage and how do we engage, and including the challenge.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Zainal, for sharing with us, because these are very important, very practical situation that we have to face on the ground when we do the mapping exercises. And this can be applied in many situations. So at this point, I would like to invite our last speaker for this section, Associate Professor Dr. Zaim Nordin from UNIMAS. Dr. Zaim is now the coordinator for our Sarawak section in terms of the different constituencies. So Dr. Zaim, if you could share with us, because you played the role as a researcher as well as a solution provider. This is also linking up to the next section. How do the roles complement one another? And were there any conflicting moments that you went through, especially in the first part, where the mapping situation was going on? So over to you, Dr. Zaim.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Dato' Rashila, and good afternoon, everyone. YB Dato' Rohani, Dato' Denison, and I think YB Dato' William also as well here. Okay. I think from my part as last year in 2020, I was a researcher for the APPGM. And I need to report to Zainal, Dr. Zainal, and also Mr. Alizan. Okay, everything from the data and the first phase and second part. And at the same time, I'm also helping Omna to coordinate, in terms of the how to discuss, how to have a meeting and to monitor everything at the constituency. At the Parliament Bandar Kuching and also Parliament Batang Sadong. So this Parliament Bandar Kuching is in the city center. It's okay. I mean, it's easy to go around. But Parliament Batang Lupa is quite far from Kuching, maybe around 2 or 3 2 hours, by car, depending on your driving. So. My role is, I think, in terms of the solution provider, actually, I'm not really into the part of the solution provider because all the project is carried out by outsider, except one from UNIMAS, because I am from UNIMAS and I encourage my colleague to take part in one project. We call it Persatuan Mahasiswa Fakulti Sains Kognitif and Pembangunan Manusia UNIMAS. So I encourage them to take part in one project at the Parliament Batang Lupa. So, but that project is, I think, about fertigations and quite successful in terms of the solution and everything. And I think they managed to get the second part of the funding for this year, for this project. But in Bandar Kuching, the solution provider actually is carried out by Sadia. Sadia is Sarawak Dayak Iban Associations, and because the locations of the solution project is in a squatter area in Kampung Cawan, and I think majority is from Iban, and this is the right call. I mean, to appoint them, Sadia, and I'm also helping them in terms of how to need assessment to get the data, what is the requirement. And another solution provider is ROSE. ROSE is Rise of Social Effort. So we managed to visit 3 places in Parliament Bandar Kuching, but as I mentioned, I'm not really into the solution provider, and I'm only part of the researcher and co-coordinator to help other coordinator in terms of the monitorings and also to see what I can help them throughout the project. And of course, from my observations, when what we call it Turun Padang to Parliament Batang Lupa, I can see all the projects successful implement. For example, in Parliament Batang Lupa, Pesakma and also Yayasan Salam. So they managed to conduct a project in terms of keusahawanan and to uplifting the economic for women's associations. And for Parliament Bandar Kuching, it's more in squatters area, and it's not far from my home actually, the kampung. So I easily 5 minutes from I drive, I can directly on that side. So that's I think I can share about the role of a researcher and also I think that co-coordinator, and not more about the solution provider, because in terms of solution provider, I only monitor and try to help them, in order to facilitate them to see the project. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zaim, yeah, for sharing with us the role that you played. We actually do have maybe about 6 minutes or so. Am I right, Secretariat? We have about 6 minutes or so. Okay, at this point, while we have gone through the different questions, can we kind of link it back to the mapping and issue situation? Because at this point, we have to, once the groundwork is done, you have to prioritize the issue. So, sometimes at the ground level, you have like 10 different issues. Maybe I can just ask one question to each of our presenters. In the experience that you've had, what was the biggest challenge in prioritizing the issues to come up from 10 to 3 or 2? So maybe I'll start with Dr. Zainal first this time.
Okay, just about to think which issue from. Okay, being human there, I think as much as we wish to bring it up at policy level, yeah, the challenge would be in between meeting the human call and meeting the policy call. What do I mean here is that we know that there's a lot of budget and education being given out from the federal to the local, to the district level. Yeah, but what happened is that when we see that, for example, when we met, I can't recall, I'm got confused which area now, which constituency, too many of them. When we get to see that a family that's still living 2-3 days without food, yeah, so that made me really in dilemma. Should we push for that kind of issues, food security, food hunger, and etc., as against issues of education? So okay. I just trying to illustrate that's how, Prof, that's the main challenge, whether you want to see the bigger picture that we used to, or an immediate need of the family of that particular constituencies. That's my biggest challenge.
Okay, thank you, Zainal, for sharing. Yeah, because this is really experience that we get from the ground itself. So maybe Cik Alizan, because you have the broad picture of, at least from phase of cohort 1, we have the 10 constituencies. Through in the prioritizing your experience, what would you comment beyond this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. I think similar to Dr. Zainal, start out being we are human beings and we go to ground, and when we start listing these issues, all the issues are important. I think that's the most difficult part to prioritize. It is as if saying some of the issues are less important than others, and that is not necessarily true. So one of the things that in terms of the term or the methodology of prioritizing it is ultimately we are working towards sustainable development goals. And as Dr. Zainal mentioned, when we talk about sustainable development goals, there are a few characteristics. One of them is being more long-term. Focus of SDGs is 2030, but sustainable development in general is long-term. Another is that it is cross-cutting. So we prioritize issues that are cross-cutting across different issues, but also the coverage is not just within perhaps one locality, but that cuts across different localities, that cuts across different communities as well. But hence, completely agree with Dr. Zainal, there may be, let's say, the balance is there may be one isolated, desperate case that needs assistance compared to a more broader issue that in our methodology covers our prioritization method, and that's it's very difficult to choose. Nonetheless, just quickly, because we have a great team with us, civil society, etc. as well, there are other means to address some other issues as well. So I think this is where the PGM team goes beyond our remit in many ways to ultimately problem solve these issues.
Yeah, thank you, Cik Alizan. Yeah, and maybe back to you, Dr. Zaim.
Okay, thank you.
The local experience of Sarawak, yeah.
Right. Thank you, Prof. Dato'. Okay. So I think during our engagements with the CSO, with the MP, so we get to know the issue, and after that we mapping all the issues, so many issues. But when we go down to the site visit, when we visit the place, for example, I give example the Kampung Cawan, this is quarter area. For me, myself, I think I want to completely change everything from the physical, not only the spiritual and everything, because they need everything from they don't have access to the water, they don't have clean water, to the electricity, and this kind of place still exists in our society, and they are in the urban area, and so I think that's something that opens my eyes about the issues. There are so many issues we need to tackle, but we need to prioritize which one, and with our budget, a limited budget, and also with the limited time. So we try to prioritize which project should be we award or we give to the solution provider. I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaim. Yeah, I think I only have like 30 seconds to wrap up. Yeah, now that we've got the experience of in 32 constituencies, we still will have another 190 to go. Okay, we hope that through our experience with the mapping and the issues, we can come up, we work better in terms of how to prioritize things, those kind of things, taking into consideration the human element. I thank all the three speakers for this particular session, and I will pass it now back to Dr. Fadila.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Professor Dr. Rashila Ramli and also the members. Last but not least, please welcome the moderator of part 3, Mrs. Omna Srini Ong, who will be moderating the upcoming session entitled Solutions Project. Mrs. Omna.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Fadila. First of all, I must congratulate my dear friend, Prof. Dr. Rashila Ramli and PSSM for this amazing conference and for spotlighting the work of the SDGs in the APPGM in this regard. So good afternoon. I am between you and lunch. Well, we know that, and our panel of speakers. We've got 30 minutes. We decided we'll have a conversation. But then maybe I should just first of all say that, this whole experience, I've been involved in the SDGs ever since I think the country signed up in 2015 for this amazing international roadmap and framework for action for development. And it has been an amazing journey. But what is very endearing about it is its bottom-up approach. And we know that it's about localizing the principles of SDGs and to respond to the most vulnerable and marginalized people based on the principle of leave no one behind. And we know that we do this by understanding and addressing the drivers that leave people behind, by enabling and empowering those left behind through meaningful, safe, inclusive civic engagement, and by shaping, and that's where we are at now in this last panel, by shaping, delivering, improving policies aimed at curbing inequalities and upholding minimum standards of well-being for people. And as the previous panels have said, it's such a mammoth task, but I truly love our step-by-step organic approach. And to share with us today, I'm very pleased with all that's going on. YB William Leong is joining us today. He's MP for Selayang. And he's also a member of the APPGM SCG. Delighted to have my dear friend, Dr. Lin Mui Kiang, who's the head of solutions and who oversees this entire solution process. And of course, someone who's come in for our 2021 projects, Dr. Zain Yassin, who's with the UiTM Sabah, and he's also the liaison and coordinator for all the Sabah projects, I believe, Zain, in 3 areas. And so I shared with you all some questions that we could consider, but I thought, first of all, I'm going to look at the time, and I hope, Fadila, you will also prompt us when we are closer to the end. I thought perhaps we could have Dr. Lin as Head of Solutions give us an overview of all the projects so far. I know, and I'm looking at that long list of solutions projects. Again, it's a huge task, 34. But you know, at the back of my mind, I don't want to forget the capacity building projects that we had also undertaken. So really looking at 56 in just 10 constituencies. So Dr. Lin, over to you. You're muted, Dr. Lin. Can you unmute? Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Puan Omna. I'd like to give just a very concise overview of what we've been doing for the solution projects. So the solution projects to localize SDGs. The APPGM solution projects are designed to address the issues and challenges identified by the research team during their field visits and discussions with MPs, office, government agencies, NGOs, community leaders, and the community. And upon prioritization of the issues, calls for proposals are made to interested and competent parties to submit their project proposals. The APPGM SDG seeks to maximize the contributions from the expertise, experience of related organizations to assist the communities on the ground. They range from CSOs, universities, communities, and the private sector. And these proposals are formulated based on their effectiveness, sustainability, replicability, and scalability. And the suitability and capacity of the project proposals are also assessed. The proposals are then endorsed by the respective MPs, reviewed by the solutions head before presented to the APPGM Executive Committee for final approval. And our target groups. The focus is on the empowerment of people to improve their lives. The SPs are aimed at increasing the well-being and income of the B40 groups, including women, children, the aged, youth, indigenous peoples, the general community, including squatters, stateless people, and refugees who lack access to social welfare benefits, infrastructure, and services. And in 2020, we implemented 34 SPs in 10 constituencies. And they cover a very wide spectrum and include the following projects. We have organic and mushroom farming, hydroponic, community gardens, herbal garden, fodder farm, aquaculture. And we have entrepreneur skills development, e-commerce training, financial management, Google mapping, upgrading Tamil sites, setting up business centers and hubs. We have women and youth enterprises such as soup kitchens and catering, bakery, cafe management, seafood processing. We also have ecotourism in several constituencies. They do asset mapping and promotion, developing contents on tourism sites, collaboration with platforms such as TripAdvisors and tourism agencies. And there are quite a few projects in technical skills development, in aircon, wiring, welding, weaving, blacksmithing, tractor and combined harvester operation and maintenance. We also have education, language skills development and tuition for teachers, school children, volunteers, refugees, and stateless children. And in well-being, health and well-being, gender and equality and women's rights, domestic violence, child marriages, and how to assess aid and welfare assistance to enhance their confidence and resilience, and also prevention of drug addiction. We have waste management projects, 3Rs and buyback centers, creation of value-added products, and community development projects with multiple components to improve the quality of life in squatter settlements and gravity-fed water system for the community. So the solution projects were implemented in 10 constituencies in 2020 and increased to 30 in 2021 with addition of 20 more constituencies. The constituencies, there are 19 in Peninsula and 11 in Sabah and Sarawak. So those in green are those implemented in 2020, and those in yellow are under implementation for 2021. And we also have a second phase for all those implemented in 2020, and additional allocation for them to expand or replicate the projects that they have successfully implemented last year. And apart from these projects, we also had capacity building, 22 projects in 2020 to raise awareness among the government agencies, the communities about the SDGs and how the SDGs are relevant in their own lives, so that they can relate to the work that we are doing to improve their lives on the ground. And the way forward, the APPG SDG model uses a bottom-up approach, which responds to the realities of poverty and inequality on the ground, which cannot be measured by PLI, Poverty Line Index, alone or even the multi-dimensional index. It is a unique model as it is driven by the MPs and supported by central agencies like EPU and the Ministry of Finance, and can provide feedback on its experience to the government. The model helps to identify the many facets and causes of poverty, issues and challenges through issue mapping and needs assessment and designing projects to address them. It is a model that can be replicated in all locations, urban, semi-urban, or rural areas. And these findings can help to contribute to a holistic approach, which is needed to promote policy coherence, multi-level governance, whole of government and society approach to facilitate SDG localization and lead to more effective policy formulation and program design, resource allocation, and improved service delivery to better achieve the 17 goals and to leave no one behind. Thank you, Amna.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lin. Yeah, if we can have our panelists back again. I would now perhaps like to pose a question to YB William. You've been in the earlier cohort, and whether you could just share with us some of the key concerns in your area, Selayang. How was that conceptualization project, solutions project done? What was the process and approach? I know we talked about it earlier, but maybe you can also share how these solutions efforts have been participatory across all stakeholders. I know you're covering multiple issues in your solutions. And what were the impacts that you're seeing, and what are some of the key learning in this regard?
Thank you very much. The Selayang area, we are at the fringe of the Kuala Lumpur city. We have B40 issues. Essentially, we have got informal economy, squatter areas, housing problems. We have issues relating to single mothers, youth in danger, and a special problem that only in Selayang we have a huge refugee population, and their coexistence with the local residents have given rise to a lot of tension. That is a very special area that Selayang has. What we did with this SDG, to me, one of the most powerful moments is when it was bottom up, where we have 35 NGOs together with the government officials sitting down in one room together with the police and looking at Selayang as a whole. I have been seeing each of these NGOs on a one-to-one basis, focusing on their particular area. But here we are now sitting down together. It is like having a bird's eye view with a whole bunch of local tourists pointing out from the air areas that we have missed all this while when we are looking at the ground level. So it was a very powerful moment for me, and I think for everyone else. And as we discussed, the issues became clear and the solutions became clear. It was one of those moments where you realize that this is something that we have never done before. Although we know each other, we have never sat down and looked at the issues as a whole.
Thank you so much, YB. Can you also maybe share with us what were some specific solutions projects that you undertook and why were they chosen?
We looked at several projects, and the first one, of course, was the tension between the refugees and the locals. And we realized one of the problems was communication, especially the ladies from the refugees. They did not know how to speak Bahasa Malaysia, even though they have been here for many years. So one of the courses that we did was to provide them with a course to learn Bahasa Malaysia. We had also problems relating to single mothers. How do we give them a sustainable livelihood? So it is not just feeding them, but to teach them. And our proposal was to give them a bakery class together with a cafe operation management and to let them know the intricacies and skills of operating a business where their children can also take part. So it was not just waiting for the fish, but teaching them how to fish. And I think that was a very gratifying experience. We have the youth in danger. These are the young people that have left school or about to finish school, but they don't see that there's a future for them. We provided them with these skills learning course, air condition and basic electrical course. And it was very fulfilling to see that quite immediately after the course, they were taken in, they found jobs, and they were able to get subcontract works to start having a business of their own and to realize that they can make something of themselves if they work at it. Whereas before that, it was like there's nothing else that they can do. So I think that was really something that was very wonderful and appreciated, where we can see concrete results by the participants. I think all the stakeholders were very happy to see the ending.
Yeah, it's very exciting to hear the impacts that you're sharing right now. If I could jump to Dr. Jain. Dr. Jain, you are with the 2021 cohort, and you're really starting that process that they are all talking about right now. So what would you say that process is looking like in terms of leading towards developing solutions projects in your 3 constituencies in Sabah?
Yeah, thank you, Omna. Even though I just started this year as a coordinator for Sabah 2021, but I did also involve last year project in Pensiangan with Prof. Jun. So there are a few issues that have been highlighted. For example, like yesterday, Prof. Jun that highlighted on the early marriage. When we back into roots of the problems, they will go to the issue of poverty. When we talk about the project that have been selected in 2020 and 2021, so there are a lot of issues that are still pertinent. For example, like infrastructure and so on and so forth, and issue related to agriculture, the Pulau community and so on and so forth, and then low women and single mother participation. And after we identify all the issue, right, and we try to prioritize all the issues, and another things that we need to consider is the feasibility of the project, which is need to be considered, not only in terms of the financial matters, time frames, the current conditions of COVID-19, but as well as the capability of the solution providers. This is what I experienced when I selecting the solution providers, to select the solution provider that can perform, that can implement what we aim to do, is one of the quite critical things that as a researcher. And also need to be supported by the Parliament's office and also the community. So this is quite critical in terms of selecting the projects. And also one of the challenges that I want to share here also is quite good experience for me, is the localizations when we need participation from all stakeholders. It's quite challenging. To get participation from all stakeholders is quite challenging, especially issue related to the different political point of view, you see, and because all the movements and all the so-called activities involve Parliament office. And what I learned on these processes is quite new for me, Omna. It's quite new for me. It's good because this is action research. Because we as a researcher, we are not only conducting or identify issue and mapping the issue, but as well as thinking what is the best solution. Not only the best solution for us, but what is the best solutions that supported by the community. So this is quite new, and it's very good that we can proceed this kind of methodology. Yeah, Una.
Yeah, thank you. Jaime, can you also, you know how I feel about gender issues, and how and what have you somehow considered in terms of mainstreaming gender in even in the development of your solutions projects and capacity building projects?
Yeah, so the initiative basically started as early as the issue mapping process, because during issue mapping process, we try our best to have gender balance during the dialogue, during the discussions, and so on and so forth. And we have a specific sessions with women, youth, and men, where we try to identify issues. By then, we try to specify not only generalized issues, but as well as specific issue related to pertinent to women, and so on and so forth, and men, youth, and so on. Then we can establish solutions that can cover all the or can have a gender balance participation, even though they have projects that focus on women empowerment, for example. But every project we try to promote gender balance as one of the SDG goals.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And maybe if I can go back to Dr. Lin, could you also perhaps share with us collectively, maybe in a nutshell, some of the impacts that we have seen in the 2020 solutions?
Yes, I think a lot of it has also been affected by the COVID pandemic. Mm. So many of the projects tend to come from the need for income generation for the communities. So we do have many projects for income generation, in e-commerce development, business management, financial management, and that is related to the skills that are being taught in the projects, like bakery, like all the skills training projects. The aircon is it's a very good project in Selayang. Then we have the wiring project in Kuching. We have, and also somehow the income generation factor has come into many of the projects, even in the the farming projects, the organic farming, which is also trying to attract ecotourism to the Orang Asli area. Jelly, we have the mushroom project, which is doing very well. It's now harvested 5-6 times already, and they were going to phase 2 for this year. And aquaculture projects are doing well, and the women empowerment and youth, all that also are related to income generation. So that is a one common theme going through many of the projects, besides the other projects like for education, training of the children who are not able to go to school now, and then also the English language training, which somehow, you know, the English language teachers in the schools are not able to teach English. And so sometimes these projects are necessary due to the lack of service delivery, because like social welfare as well, many of the communities are not aware of and do not have access to social welfare aid, assistance, and protection. So, and all these have come up very clearly during the pandemic when so much assistance is required. And the other projects which I find useful are the community development projects, which you yourself did in Kuching for Kampong Chawan, for the squatters residing on top of a graveyard, things like that. They have no address, they have no access to any assistance. So the community projects there with the many components are very useful to help them improve their lives, you know, for providing health screening and welfare and skills training, income generating projects and tuition for the children. So I think we have done very well in terms of addressing the issues that have been raised by the research team, and to design projects, solution projects to really address them and try to be as effective and impactful as possible within the constraints of the budget and the pandemic restrictions.
Yeah, thank you. Now back to YB William. You know, you've done a whole lot, and also for the other constituencies as well. And we know that this is a process, but a project that begins will come to an end. But we also want to see the sustainability of any efforts that you started, just like you have spotlighted how just having that multi-stakeholder presence in one room, talking about the whole of Selayang, impacted you so much. What do you see at the end of the project as things that you can carry forward to really look at the sustainability of all the efforts that have been begun? Did you get me, YB William?
I think we are very happy with the projects that we have done. We are now into the second round, where we have selected some of the projects to continue and to have a second cohort, but we have not left the first behind. It is nice to report to all of you that the first cohort that did the cafe operations, we are opening our cafe this 31st August, run by single mothers and their children. On Merdeka Day, they are going to find their independence. Come to Selayang Baru, you will be able to get your cappuccino and your long black served by our trainees to help together with their children, where they are learning a sustainable livelihood. I think that is what we are looking for, an impactful change to their lives. And this is what we are continuing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We've got 2 minutes. Jain, what are some of the learnings that you're capturing from this whole discussion in terms of how you're going to take it forward? You benefit from a lot of what has already been done.
Yeah, thank you, Omna. The last question just now is quite interesting. After completed all the project, So how to make sure to ensure the sustainability of the project, right? I just want to share the one of the project in the Kota Belud. So we managed to establish a community task force association. And we managed to register the community, the local community. So, for example, in the gravity system, where the main objective basically is to improve the water gravity, but as well as to establish community water committee to monitor the cleanliness, coordinate operation, as well as to train a local community as a rural technician. So this is way forward where we can ensure after we have completed the project, so the local community itself, they can sustain the project, and so on and so forth. As a FGM, so I'm quite thankful as being given this opportunity, not only to help the community, but as well as to achieve the SDG goals for Malaysia. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic. I just want to quickly summarize. I'm really inspired, although I'm also part of the process. But every time we have such a conversation, it's really as inspiring, and we feel very honored to be part of this. I would like to say that what we have started is really a 360 process, from start to finish. But being a circle, it doesn't end, right? We'll move it forward through sustainable lines of action. William, I really loved what you said in the beginning, and I think that's something that's really wonderful to even end this session, that what we've able to accomplish, if anything at all, is to bring all on board and everyone to the table. And I think the strong focus on empowerment, engagement, enabling local communities is what our solutions projects, as the fruition of the whole process, aims to do. Jain, I like what you said about action research. And I think as an academic, I think it's so exciting. And for everyone who's listening in today on this whole process, I hope it will just move them to also undertake action research such as this. And Dr. Lin, the fact that even with the COVID, unprecedented COVID that had befallen us, all of us somehow managed to navigate this and see it through, and then shabas to the whole team. So with that, I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists, YB William, Dr. Lin, and Dr. Jain, and all the best, and take care, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Omna Srining Ong and panel members, for your insightful input and discussion. Thank you all for joining us for this roundtable discussion. Please remember our March-long session this afternoon in memory of departed social science scholars from 2000 until 2020 that will start after the lunch break at 2:15 p.m. using the same Zoom link. Following that will be the president closing remarks, the announcements of the best presenter for each session, as well as the host for the next MSC 13. So you will definitely not want to miss all these exciting sessions, yeah? So please be reminded that Malaysian Social Science Association members, we would like to request to you to update your contact number, your address, your email address as well for PSSM data update progress, yeah? So for those who have yet to join PSSM, we would also encourage that all of you visiting the PSSM official websites, www.pssm.org.my. So do also check out the latest important social science books released recently by the members of PSSM, as included in the e-proceeding as well, and shared during the breaks. So on behalf of the organizers, I would like to invite all guests and participants to take a break for lunch. Please do not hesitate to ask our conference assistant for any inquiries or help. So thank you for your attention and enjoy your second day at the 12th International Malaysian Studies Conference. Thank you.
Can we take a photo sebelum kita?
Yes, sure. Yes.
If
let me
people
do
can
it.
on their camera,
Yeah, let me do it.
Their camera, yeah.
Yes, I'm the camera woman.
Okay.
Let me do it, but I think we no need to have the spotlight. Can I have Dr. Wan? Dr. Wan, can we go back to the view for gallery? Okay. Yes, I'm in the page 1 now, so I can see some of you have not on your camera. Can I have all on your camera? All right. Okay. Yeah, let's wait 1 minute or a few seconds. Okay, page 1, Zoe Ng and Jamal Gabir has not on the camera. Aliza Mahadi. All right, okay, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and then you wait for my signal. Are you ready? 1.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Oh, hold on. I need to redo because some just on their camera. 1, 2, 3. Hold on, let me print screen first. This is important. Okay, all right, hold on your smile. I'm moving to page 2. Page 2, a lot actually not on the camera. Maturi, 1A, Amirza, Maisara, Maturi, who else? I see Xiao Qing. Okay, even Dr. Wan Amiza. Azwan, Fidaus Azizan. Okay, are you ready? See, I'm calling the name, like calling my student. Hazrin, yes, Sobi. All right, let's go. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, hold on. Let me save it. We have only 3 pages, don't worry. Okay, now let's move on to our third page. I think third page, okay. Let's 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have done. Thank you very much to all.